talk the biggest questions heading into week 2. Next on Fantasy Football Today in 5. Welcome to FFT in 5. I'm Chris Towers. I'm here with Heath Cummings, and we are talking about the biggest questions for week 2. And naturally, we're going to start with the New York Jets. I got a couple of questions about them. We talked about it on last night's pod, but Heath, I want to get your thoughts as well. And we'll start with, is Breece Hall already a must-start fantasy running back? And if so, was he the best draft pick in fantasy this season?
If he is already a must-start running back, then yes, he was the best draft pick in fantasy this season. I am not quite there yet. Mm-hmm. He was fantastic running straight lines. We saw that he didn't still have quite the stamina. He got caught from behind by a guy that runs a 4.5, so he's not quite up to Breece Hall speed yet. The bigger concern I have is it was 10 carries and 2 targets. How big? The increase in workload is not going to be based on if they think he's a lot better than Dalvin Cook or not. It's going to be based on what their doctors say. We'll give him a little bit more this week. We give him a little bit more. If he's got 12 carries and 3 targets this week against the Dallas Cowboys, no, I don't think he's a start. I think that's a flex. So I'm still ranking him just outside of my top 30 running backs. I will view him as a must start, maybe week 3 or week 4, but not quite yet because of the matchup and because I still think the workload's probably going to be pretty low.
Yeah, he played 17 snaps last night, got 10 carries, 12 snaps on rushing plays, 5 on pass plays. So not at all a full-time player yet. Dalvin Cook played right around half the snaps. I would guess we're going to see this tilt a little closer to 50-50 and maybe, Michael Carter, who played 12 snaps last night, less involved as we go on. I think that's the assumption anyway, but I agree mostly because of the matchup for week 2. Dallas Cowboys just absolutely dominated the Giants in week 1. That's a very, very good defense. So I would expect the Jets offense is likely going to struggle. Frankly, with the exception of Breece Hall breaking off like 3 giant runs, the Jets offense was pretty bad last night as well. And I think that's what we expect moving forward, which brings us to question 2. Where are you ranking Garrett Wilson for week 2 and for the rest of the season?
Week 2 is going to be right around wide receiver 15, maybe wide receiver 20. Thinking about that matchup against the Cowboys, I may move him even a little bit lower. But I will have him as a high-end number 2 wide receiver rest of season. I'd expect Zach Wilson to be at least marginally better than he was last year. We saw Wilson has just the ability to make incredible plays, so you don't want to rank him too low. But he's not a top 12 guy anymore.
Garrett Wilson has the ability to make Zach Wilson, I'm sure, incredible plays.
They're incredible.
Yeah.
What was it Peyton Manning said on the Manning cast last night? I've never seen a guy run backwards that far before he throws it.
I was yelling at my TV during that specific play. I think high-end wide receiver 2 is probably the ceiling, and based on what we've seen with Zach Wilson at QB for the Jets, Garrett Wilson averaged under 45 yards per game in the 8.5 games that Zach Wilson was the QB last week. So my expectations are pretty low, and my expectations are also pretty low for the Atlanta Falcons passing game. My question to you, Heath, do you have any hopes for the Atlanta Falcons passing game?
Yeah. I don't think they're going to have very many games where they run 48 plays like they did in week 1. I don't think they're going to have very many games where they win by 14 points like they did in week 1. So I would expect both the total number of plays and the percentage of plays that are passes to be higher later in the season. Specifically, you have to love Kyle Pitts with an 82% air yard share. I mean,
it was 40 air yards?
It was probably pretty close. I mean, he averaged 20 yards a catch, so at least that. So I still am going to rank Pitts like a starter this week. I'm still going to hold Drake London and pray that he starts getting targets.
Yeah, Drake London, low end wide receiver 3 for me, which actually isn't much lower than where I had him ranked. He was like 30 coming into the season for me. I was a little lower on him, and Arthur Smith. Yeah. Arthur Smith. Let's get the biggest buy low after week 1. I'll give you mine. Kind of the entire Bengals offense. I think that was just a weird fluke, whether it's because, Joe Burrow was less than 100%. The weather was really poor. Burrow didn't play in the preseason. Whatever it was, I don't think we're going to see that offense struggle moving forward. It's the top 5 offense in the NFL. But specifically, T. Higgins and Joe Mixon look like obvious buy lows to me. Joe Mixon, ran routes on about half of their pass plays, got I think 14 of the 17 running back carries or whatever it ended up being. I think those are both going to be must-start guys moving forward. I don't see any reason to think the Bengals are going to go away from Mixon yet. So that's where I'm at. Heath, who's your biggest buy low?
I'm going to go with another running. I'm going to go with James Cook. I think I was really encouraged by the fact that he handled a little over half of the team's rush attempts, counting Josh Allen, closer to 70% if you only count the running backs, had a 15% target share. If you just use those numbers and the Bills' offense last year, you're looking at 240 carries and 90 targets. That would be a fantastic season for where he was drafted. So I do think, and it's the same thing I would say with Gabe Davis as well. Stephon Diggs overcame it, but that was a terribly difficult matchup last night against the Jets. And I just expect that Cook's going to be much more efficient and much better in week 2.
Yeah, I thought he didn't look great in week 1, but again, how much of that is the matchup versus, not great field conditions as well, playing in some rain up there. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but yeah, the usage was super promising. That was my biggest concern coming in. He did get the usage that we were hoping for. We do expect this Bills offense to be very good. So I agree with that one. If anyone's panicking, I do think he should be a solid RB2.
And I do think that there's also a chance that they just spend like 48 hours watching the tape from last night and saying, Josh Allen, why are you helicoptering through the air? Why are you throwing the ball 700 yards? Why not just give it to James Cook a little bit more?
I guess we're not going to let Josh Allen be Josh Allen because that's who he is, baby. That's what he does. You can't take that away from Josh Allen. I expect a little bit fewer rushing attempts for Josh Allen moving forward, and that should be good for James Cook. So I agree with you on that one. He should be a solid RB2, and that's going to do it for FFT and 5. We'll see you tomorrow.